Hi, Professor Anderson. I'm just going to be doing the Lippincott Real World Module 2, Assignment 3. So I chose gun violence as my news item. This article was written June 19th, 2021. The source is Frontline, and it was written by just a reporter. I don't know if you need the name, but I'll include it when I submit it. And then the name of it is Number of Gunshot Victims in Minneapolis is up 90% from last year. Solutions Elusive. And then I also have the link with it as well. So the article I found and read just talks about increasing rates of gun violence in Minneapolis. These shootings have resulted in a lot of injuries and a lot of deaths. So it's really important to address this. In the article, it talks specifically about a shooting that happened downtown Minneapolis at a nightclub called Monarch of Minneapolis. This shooting resulted in the death of two men, 21-year-old Charlie Johnson, who was the student who went to University of St. Thomas, and then a 23-year-old man, Christopher Jones, who police said was the intended target of the shooting, but he was acting in self-defense because apparently the other guy shot first. 8 other people who were there were also injured in this incident. So Minneapolis is really just dealing with a lot right now with gunshot reports and all of that, especially struggling to find solutions for these because the police department is still under scrutiny because of all the police brutality and all of that has been happening. There's a quote here from the article. It says, as of Thursday, the city had 273 gunshot victims and 43 homicides just this year, and it's mostly by gunfire. So it's really important to address that. It says provide a rationale for choosing this. I chose this topic mainly because it's really relevant to me and to a lot of people that I know, a lot of my friends. I mean, as you can see, I'm Black, so a lot of these shootings are people of color or Black men, as I'll talk about later. But anyways, yeah, so I currently work in Minneapolis right across the street from Monarch, so it happened literally in the front yard. The restaurant, or Monarch, which was talked about in the article, in the beginning of the article, so it's right across the street. One of the men were my age. I'm 23. Christopher Jones was 23, and then the other guy was a 21-year-old college student, which is what we all are. So it's really relevant to us. And as nurses, I think it's really relevant because we'll have to deal with gunshot victims in the hospital if we choose to work in the ED or anything of that sort. Med-surg relates to a lot of different units. And I think it's just really relevant to our lives and our future careers as nurses. The next thing is the risk and protective factors that were and weren't addressed in the article. So some things that were addressed were that they're deploying teams of violence. They plan to deploy teams of violence intervention workers and bringing in outside law enforcement to help boost the force because it is depleted since the George Floyd murder due to like cutbacks or people resigning or that sort of thing. So they're bringing in more people. They said that it's important that we find a way to provide funding for affordable housing and health initiatives and other services supporting communities of color. So the solution to this problem is not to bring in more cops. The article addresses that 4 out of 5 gunshot victims are Black men, which I said I was going to talk about, which I am now just bringing up. And it's important to invest in our Black men and families to see the root of the problem. President Biden, another thing is that President Biden has proposed to spend $5 billion on an evidence-based community violence prevention program over the next 8 years. So he's developing that plan and about to put it in motion, so that's really interesting. And he also proposed allocating a couple $1 billion to address the country's gun violence, so that's really good. There's a direct quote here that I just thought was really interesting. It says, "We don't ever talk about social determinants of health when we talk about gun violence. Keeping kids in school, access to healthcare, and wealth. And I'm not talking about a mansion here. I'm talking about keeping the lights on in your life." And I just thought that was really interesting because we did talk about social determinants in class. And I never would have thought social determinants have anything to do with gun violence or something that's not healthcare related, but obviously it is, and I recognize that now, so it's really interesting. So moving on to stuff that wasn't addressed. So something that wasn't addressed are that guns are the problem. There should be gun regulations, better gun laws, and gun elimination plan in motion. That's just my opinion. If we didn't have any guns, there wouldn't be any gun violence. Another thing that wasn't addressed was the categories of the shootings. So, like, are they gang related? Are they police related? Are they random shootings that are just happening? That kind of thing. Another thing is very important, mental health care for those affected by shootings, and mental health care for the shooters themselves. I think that's just really important. And the last thing is that gun violence, while it's critical, it's 100% preventable. So just keeping that in mind. The last two sections. So the first one is talking about, what's the question? Describe a potential partnership between public health workers and health agencies to address the problem. So I said that we could work with, I didn't know if you wanted a specific organization, but I just looked one up and saw the Prevention Institute, which talks about like what we need to do with the gun laws and helping with that. I think that we could also work on having unarmed community safety specialists that patrol the hardest hit neighborhoods. So like what are they called? Neighborhood watch programs that just patrol and help out in the community. And then maybe creating a program aimed towards troubled youth, helping them prepare for college, getting them off the streets, helping them with work and applications and resumes, and just alimenting them into the real world. Also want to help them and just address mental health and any anger issues, employment opportunities, and just all of that. And the final thing that I'm going to talk about is just the intervention from the public health wheel. So I chose community organizing. I thought it fit perfectly. This is needed in this situation because I believe this issue needs to be addressed with the whole community's involvement for it to be solved and for it to work. There have been communities that have gathered together and made their own neighborhood watch programs, organizing community events that empower their community and keep them doing good things so that they may be less likely to get involved with preventable violence. So just keeping good vibes and just positives in their community. I believe that it starts with addressing the problem from the inside. So identifying the problem, potential solutions, and then applying those solutions to the problem, and then also evaluating how that affected the problem, if it solved it, if it didn't, and implementing other interventions. So pretty much like the nursing process. And yeah, that's about it.